I'm glad to welcome everyone watching Sotnik-TV this moment. My companion today is Igor Chubays, a historian and philosopher. Together we'll try to evaluate the initiatives by Putin that may lead to some really bad events in Russia in the short term. Hello, Igor. Hello. Being a historian, first, please provide some specific review from that point on the past 20 years before we move to the recent events. During the last 20 years, and let me focus on that last word, the crisis inside the country has been growing deeper. The country and its control system, first of all, has been fading. That leads to unavoidable Russian civilization and society degrading, as the political system is hugging the body of Russia so hard that wherever one moves, he will meet those political restrictions. In order to prove my words not some empty demagoguery, let me just give you the three facts I believe to be the most critical ones when analyzing the situation inside the country. Those are comprehensive. According to even the official numbers that no one believes due to those always being operated, during the past 5 years our economy has been degrading. There's no economical growth. Living standards have been lowering for over 5 years. Our circumstances are already severe and the situation is only getting worse. Our economy fails. Our income and living drop. Yet the worst thing now is depopulation and degenerating. The number of people born around here is less than the number of those dying. That means that Russia may be given up on, as such conditions make living there unbearable. The number of those moving out from the country is great. I don't have exact numbers as the entire statistics over here is fake. Yet some numbers have been spread and are usually quoted. From 1991 till 2019, over 10 million people left the country. Russians can't live over here. Other sources state that number is 30 million. Those incoming are wetbacks and some refugees from Central Asia. The number of wetbacks equals half of active male population. They will call you nationalist after that, saying look at what Chubays has come up with. Those are nationalist talks. Russians are being oppressed and are dying. They will name you nationalists. The thing is that before the Bolshevik takeover, anyone living in Russia was called Russian. Yes, it is true. And Russians were calling themselves Velikoros, so it's quite complicated. The entire language is complicated. Here's what I wanted to ask. A meeting in Berlin took place yesterday, during which our Vladimir Putin, let's call him properly, met Boris Johnson. Mr. Johnson declared that no normalizing of UK-Russia relationship should be expected within a short term. Does that mean some iron curtain is to be put between Russia and the West soon? Kremlin wishes that for so long. I believe that Iron Curtain has been put a long time ago. Yet now we see a new version of that. One may leave the country now. The authorities encourage you to get out of here forever. Yet the Europe doesn't really like that now. Admission rules are being restricted. I mean resident permits and so on. Those rules are restricted all the time. Here in Slovakia, almost no Russian is getting such permits starting February or March. So getting that permit in Slovakia will make a huge problem. That will get more complicated with time, as there are too many people departing. I remember my talk to Mr. Kalugin back in days gone by. He was a KGB general who took people's side. Yes, Oleg Kalugin. We were talking about Spain. President Yeltsin was visiting. That was when some distraction was made. So he told me that wherever large groups of people were moving from the USSR, a great number of those people were special agents. They would always stick in such groups. So I'm not surprised with that desire to limit the number of those arriving. So now they have trouble moving in rather than moving out, as it's hard to determine who they are and what their intentions are. And now my final question that I take really seriously. Which way is Russia going to move now? What should the citizens expect? Will that be some Francoist-type dictatorship? Or does that exist already and something completely tough is coming? May that be another Gulag camp? What gonna happen and what do we expect due to such draconian measures? You see, the situation inside the country is getting worse. And not due to me being a pessimist. That needs reforms in order to improve. By that I mean economical changes rather than constitutional revision. No economical reforms or economical changes are suggested around here. The authorities don't do, while the society along with experts actually do. Yet the authorities don't listen to them, so the economical situation will get worse. Things will tighten according to a certain scenario. The repressions will increase and the life inside the country will only get harder. Yet there's another scenario, similar to Armenian one. There are people picketing constitution changes now, demanding hands off the constitution. And that can be called some constitution abuse rather than reforms. There's a protest meeting scheduled for February 1st. Hands off our constitution. Once more and more people and groups join that movement, they will make it difficult for the authorities to push their project through, making them pay for that. Running the country with the people obviously not supporting that and the authorities demanding and insisting on that will be getting more and more difficult. My next companion is Valery Solovey, a political analyst. Hello, Valery. Hello, Alexander. Hello, everyone. How could that happen that during 4 days such people as writer Prilepin and athlete Prodnina dug through the entire constitution, suggesting so many amendments? Is that some kind of literature legal special forces? I never thought they were that brainy. Or was that done not by them, but rather by some special team from the administration of the president? Have they all written everything beforehand? Everything was sure said beforehand, and that is not a secret. The preparation for changing the constitution of Russian Federation began back in 2017. There has been much wider range of those changes prepared than what we see now. That was much wider, so I, just like you and the rest of the observers, was highly surprised with what has happened. Suddenly, that commission did its job within 3 to 4 days. I expected some serious amendments to be suggested. Even some state ideology adoption was possible. There were some other things, like decreasing the number of federal subjects, and I can think of a single reason for that. According to Occam's razor principle, let us not multiply the number of essences beyond what is needed. So my guess is that was due to some personal situation of Russian president. I won't decrypt that, but they confirmed to me yesterday that was all about his personal situation. Did he get sick? Well, we need to ask that from his attending physician. But as you know, the physical state of the first person is one of the top secrets in Russia, just like in any Eastern rule, in Byzantium or in the USSR. His personal situation literally changed within the past day or two. That happened right when he got back from Berlin. He attended that conference in Berlin. Yes, he did, and I noticed how warm he was welcomed there by Merkel and Macron. He was basking in the rays of glory and relevance. Apart from that passage by Boris Johnson, of course. So are the relations with Britain finally spoiled now? Yes, it comes to that. Both Merkel and Macron show the signs of respect toward Putin, being afraid of what he may set, along with Erdogan, his friend. And that may be some mass immigrant invasion to European countries through Libya. That could exceed the one back in 2016, as far as I remember. Yes, those were years 2016-17. That was the first thing, and now comes the second one. The strategy of waiting that has been adopted by Russia back in 2014 meets the expectations. Those European countries are returning to business as usual rule, even though slowly and unwillingly. So those are ready to deal with the Russian Federation ruled by Putin. Especially since Merkel is leaving next year while Macron depends on Russian president. Does Vladimir Putin really consider three scenarios? Kremlin Telegram channels report that the first one is Putin remaining at power for an unlimited period. The second one is him appointing his successor and becoming the father of nation. The third one is him heading some state council, some supranational branch according to some federal law that will be issued regarding that council. We don't really know what that will be. So that is supposed to be the third option, with him being lifetime Don Corleone in that council. In reality, those Kremlin Telegram channels don't know a thing. Those simply interpret the clear intention by Vladimir Putin to influence the Russian politics in any case. No matter what happens, he wants that influence to be critical. That was clear before the reforming of the constitution began. That is obvious to anyone watching Vladimir Putin for the past 20 years. Yet, first of all, it's not all about the desire and the resources of Russian president. Some circumstances may suddenly appear and obtain the force irresistible by anyone. That was the first thing, and now comes the second one. I have already told that on your channel, and that may have sounded a bit fantastic, but I'm sure in my words. Putin will be totally gone from Russian politics by 2022. Is he gonna die? As I can't imagine the country without him. Until he is alive, he will stay at power. Alexander, we both belong to older generation. That's why I'm saying that. There was Brezhnev, Andropov. No, he will be gone from Russian politics by 2022. He will be gone. From Russian politics as well as from the world one. He will be gone. Just take it as a fact. But until 2022, we will have to live in some nervous and threatening environment. And what we have now is just the beginning of that. He may do a lot of trouble. Look at those reports of bombs set in schools, malls and subway stations. They are escalating that along with the victory madness escalation. And all that might be a way of training people just like some dogs to live under extraordinary military circumstances. We're getting to war. You're absolutely right supposing that. As I have publicly told before, those are the preparations for emergency state. Or at least it's partly adoption without declaring the state of exception. Such state or its elements may be adopted in two cases. First, in case of a war between Russia and its neighbor, as the war against the USA is unlikely. That is out of the question at the moment. And then some mass political unrest may start in Russia. But as of today, the second option is less chance than the first one. The foreign policy risk raises and will keep raising rapidly throughout February and March. Putin knows well that he won't get out of the game alive. He grew into president's chair and into Kremlin with all his roots. He grew completely with his head. So he will have to be pulled out or torn down along with the creation of Yerovanti. But he is hoping to oversmart everyone. He has now started the most important game of his life. The game he has started is critical. Do you think that Akla has missed already, or does he still have that coming? It's still coming. Unbelievable events await us. Thank you for the time you spent on Sotnik-TV. That was Valery Solovey, a political analyst. We will sure keep a close eye on Russia and the events around it. Please subscribe to us on Patreon. May there be lots of you. Let's build an independent live TV channel together. And be sure to watch Sotnik-TV.